Good evening. This open meeting of
This conference will now be recorded.
the Town of Auburn Board of Health is being operated as a hybrid format under Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022. The public can join the meeting remotely by telephone 224-501-3412 and access code 236-529-341, or the public can join by computer with the link provided on the town's website. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. As a preliminary matter, my name is Eric Otteson, Chairman of the Board of Health. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda participating remotely and present can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Carolyn Griffin.
Here.
And town officials and employees participating, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Tim Pratt.
Here.
Darlene Coyle.
Here.
And please note that this meeting is being recorded by Auburn Cable Television. And are there any members participating remotely? Hearing and seeing none, we'll call the meeting to order. And first on the agenda item is going to get right to a well variance request for 350 South Street. Do I have a motion to open the hearing?
Yes, I'd like to open the hearing for the well variance request at 350 South Street.
Right. And I second that. All those in favor, Carolyn Griffin.
Aye.
And Eric Otteson, aye. And the hearing is open.
Thank you. Chair, we do have the proposed,
Sure.
the owner,
Yeah,
Mr.
hold on.
Obrus, Edward
Yeah, fine.
Obrus, and Gordon Peters, his licensed professional.
Sure.
So they are here, should you want to take testimony from them.
Okay.
So I received a well variance request from Mr. Obrus, who's the owner at 350 South Street. And Mr. Obrus is putting on an addition to his existing home. The house is a single-family house, ranch style, and that is located at 350 South Street. This property is served by both a private well and private septic. We do have a existing septic as-built on file, and I do have that as some background information. The septic system was upgraded several years ago, so that certificate of compliance was issued, and that was back in 2016. The septic and well that served this house, you can notice the septic to the rear right of the property, and the existing well is to the left front of the property. So that's the as-built plan that we have on file from when the septic system was put in. We received a plot plan from Mr. Peters, the licensed professional who has pulled a building permit to put an addition onto the home. The addition, it's my understanding, is going to be an in-law apartment for a family member, and that addition a building permit was issued. However, the well in question is less than 10 feet from the proposed addition. So it was discovered through the building process that the well is in the location of the driveway and near the proposed addition. So the well requirement requires that the well be 20 feet from a building, and because this was less than the 20 feet, that is the reason for the well variance request. So the plot plan that you have in your packets shows the proposed addition and the existing well, and I instructed Mr. Obrus to come to the board for consideration of a well variance. The septic system is over 100 feet away, and I actually witnessed that installation for the septic system, so I don't think it's impacted, the addition is not impacted by the septic system. And I did ask for a floor plan of the proposed addition, and it doesn't increase the flow to the septic system. So we have both of those. I did request just some information regarding the pumping of the system with Mr. Olbris, and he's going to share that information with me. It sounds like he has routine maintenance for the septic system. So the well variance is before the board for your consideration. One of the recommendations may be, if the board does consider this well variance, if we can see when the last time the well was tested, just before any addition is put on, to see if there's any pre-construction testing, and if the owner wanted post-construction once it's completed. But those would be the considerations.
Okay. When was the last time the well was tested? Are we aware?
It's probably been about 10 years.
10 years. What's the standard for well testing? Is it?
I mean, we recommend people test every few years, just to make sure they know the quality of the water.
Okay.
But 10 years, I would recommend a well test.
Mr. Horble, did you have anything you wanted to share with the board?
No, I might have questions. I don't know if you can answer them. I realized that because Darlene shared the regulations in regards to digging or drilling a new well,
Sure.
and I did see that there was a 20-foot requirement. But the well's existing. It's a artesian well. It's about 140 feet deep. So I just want to know if we do get the variance and we move forward with construction there, would there be a hazard? I think there's a rule there, but I don't know if digging an 8-foot foundation is going to interfere with the well that's 140 feet deep, or does it pose a risk?
Excuse
Sure.
me, Eric.
Yeah.
You may want to come to the table.
Oh, just for the microphone.
For the microphone.
Going to be picked up by that microphone.
Okay.
Thank you, Rich. Thanks for the
Yeah,
reminder.
yeah, come on up here. And so would you be able to answer that? Or I mean, you have your professional with you, correct? That's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because the setback is 20 feet, it's meant to have some caution to the well. This particular addition is going to be close to that well, so you'd want to take care. Obviously, it's your only water source, so want to make sure the quality is good and remains that way through construction. But if there's going to be any structural, I guess, anything that's done to the well, you may want to contact a well professional just to make sure that stability-wise, it's solid, especially if you're going to
Yeah,
build a foundation.
I don't know how deep the casing is. We may, or I'm pretty sure we're not going to be interfering with it.
Is the wellhead come above
It does,
above
yep.
ground?
Yep.
Okay, about how high?
4 feet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Say 3 or 4
So that's
feet,
good.
yeah.
I mean, obviously, you don't know during construction, but it doesn't hurt speaking with a well
I
professional.
think we'd like to find out how deep the casing is.
Sure.
Anyway, just as a
Yep.
precaution.
Yeah,
And I think, like the director had said that there's, as far as testing goes, I think it would behoove you for safety, just to make sure that it's
Yeah,
even
even
post, just to make
for
sure
my-
you exactly.
my benefit
Your
also,
benefit,
because
your benefit is the homeowner of the family there.
if it's contaminated prior.
Prior
don't
to,
want it
post,
before.
was it you, was it someone else? So yeah, no, I think
Yeah.
that the testing is a good idea to
Yeah.
have.
Sure.
Carolyn, do you have anything additional at all? Or?
No, I agree. Like you said, with the testing before and afterwards, like you said, for your
Right.
own safety
Yeah.
too.
Does that sound reasonable to you as far as the testing goes? And
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think,
I think
yeah,
it makes sense to make sure before and after that water's safe.
Sure, yeah. And I think for protection for you, your
Yeah.
family, your loved ones, and also for the
Yeah.
contractor as well, and everyone, just so we
Yeah.
know what we're dealing with pre and post, I think.
Yeah,
that, you know,
absolutely.
a good stipulation to tie on to that. And, you would agree to that as well?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think it's a good idea to, you can contact there's several well companies, that will come out and take a test. And they know exactly what to do, so they can bring it to, certified, DEP certified lab. And you might want to consider like a post-test, once the project is completed, maybe 6 months after, something like that. But that's really, really up to you.
And so are we looking to approve the variance with that stipulation? Is that, yeah,
I would recommend.
yeah, okay.
The testing and reaching out to a well professional for any concerns regarding the stability of the well, knowing that the proximity is less than 20 feet, because obviously it's a concern
Okay.
for him.
So I guess I would entertain a motion to approve the variance request with there being pre-post testing of the well by a certified professional. Is there a second?
Yeah, I would like to make a motion to approve the variance with the stipulation, as you said, with testing pre and post, and strong recommendation, as you said, about having
The case.
a professional check for the
Sure.
stability of the casing before
Yeah.
you start, yeah.
Okay.
At that level.
Yep, and I'll second that. All those in favor, Carolyn Griffin,
Aye?
Eric Dodson, aye. That passes. Variance is passed with those stipulations, so that's it. Awesome.
Thank you very much, yeah.
So we just need to get the testing done,
Yeah.
give
we'll-
you the results, and
Yep.
then it'll move forward.
Yes, I'll be in touch with you, and we'll get, approval of the variance out to you, but if you want to, we can certainly, have you reach out to some well companies.
Sure. Great.
Great.
We
Thank
have,
you.
we have a
Thank you.
listing of, we have some that
Great.
we,
Like,
that we
Okay,
business
should I
with.
call you?
Sounds good.
Sure, sounds good. Yep.
Thank you very
All
much.
right, thank you both very
much.
much.
You guys.
Thank you. And I
Nice
would,
holiday.
You too.
thanks. I'll make a motion to close the hearing. Is there a second?
Second, close the hearing on the well variance at 350 South Street.
All those in favor, Carolyn Griffin,
Aye?
Eric Dodson, aye. The hearing is now closed. Next on the agenda, we have the proposed cemetery project, presentation at 0 Cemetery Road. We've heard from the folks a couple weeks ago, and I believe there's more of a presentation that you had this evening.
Sure.
Yeah, please, if you could, so we can mix them up.
You have some of the handouts, but we added one thing
Okay.
that I can make reference to if that works. Excuse my staple on the wrong side
Oh,
of the
thank you
page.
very much.
I already got called out.
All right.
Yes, I think I have the narrative.
You have the narrative, yes, and then we have some photos,
Oh, okay.
some diagrams to show. What do you want to open up or?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thanks for the time. Well, we presented this in our last meeting. I'm trying to build a cemetery on 0 Cemetery Road. It's going to be a denominational cemetery, Muslim cemetery. With that, I guess we can start.
Yeah, so
Todd and I can do my part here.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. So, I'm Todd Curtin from Ty and Bond. I'm a licensed site professional. The LSP is needed for the acronym is needed for this site because it is a release site under the Mass DEP Bureau of Waste Site Cleanup. I think we might have mentioned at the previous meeting how it came into play. So what we've done is two things. One, we've gone through it's under the Massachusetts contingency plan regulations that you have to follow. In our discussions with the Mass DEP, it's going the route of that versus a landfill or a dump. It was never permitted to be one. It was never assigned any kind of number. So we're not going under the solid waste regulations. We're going under the MCP regulations.
With the guidance of the Mass DEP.
Yep, exactly, yes. So, so we have our plan set. I don't know if you need us to go through that we've presented to all the different permitting folks that we've gone through to date on Conservation Commission and so forth, Planning Board and then ZBA. Probably don't want to zero in too much. I just want to factor in the the site itself and just get a general layout. Sorry, I don't have an easel. So Cemetery Road, it's right along this stretch. We're on the west side of Cemetery Road, border with Leicester to the north and a residential property, and then a property here off of Cemetery Road. So only 2 residences nearby
The Hebrew Cemetery across the street.
to over and direction east. We've done investigations between ourselves and the previous consultant, figured out where the debris or debris mixed with soil is. It's pretty much in this footprint. It takes about 4.25 acres of the site. This parcel, which we don't show on this plan, is, we mentioned it before, the previous, I think it's a 50-something acre parcel, but this section here between the power lines that go both to the north-south and to the west of it, and then down in this area. So it's like a 8-acre area here. That's the only area that we're interested in, for the cemetery use. The rest of the parcel, which is all to the west, southwest, is not part of this. So the dumping area pretty much follows with this stronger dash line where it is. It comes up close to, but not to the roadway. If anyone's walked it before, you can see, during that, especially in the dormant season, you can see debris, sticking out here and there, especially on the steeper slope that's here. They started in 1960-ish and up through the 80s. They just used it as a dump area. So they actually built almost a plateau, if you will. As you can see, probably can't see it too clearly, but drops off pretty good here where it's a little flatter, and here then it goes up in grade again. So it's like that. So we've done numerous test pits, soil borings. We've identified the contamination within the soil. It's typical of, almost typical of urban fill, where you get into, we have lead, some other metals, but lead's predominantly the contaminant of concern. Also have what's called polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, PAHs is the acronym. You sample almost anywhere that there's been urban or anthropogenic activities, that's what you get. You get PAHs and oftentimes lead. Low levels of PCBs as well. The key thing about all those contaminants is that they tend to bind to soil. They don't move. That's what they're good at. So they don't go anywhere. They don't break down easily. In fact, they don't. PCBs are definitely notorious for not breaking down. And the metals are similar. And PHs really don't break down easily either. So, and it is just in the debris. We've sampled below. Some areas there is, a foot or 2 beneath the topsoils, and then other areas it's up to 15 feet in thickness. It's mostly in the center. So what they did is they changed the grade, so you can see in some areas if there's a cross section, you got thicker layer of material prior to the groundwater table. Then you get below that, and then below there's some native soils, and then you get to bedrock. So this is, with the steep grades and everything, it's not surprising that you got bedrock. And in fact, there are some bedrock outcrops on the western side of the debris, an area where I'll show where the cemetery use would be, or close to it. So we also have groundwater data from the site. We have 4 groundwater monitoring wells on the property. We had a little higher hit in the center. There's one well here, there's a well here, well on the north and south near the border of the properties. We had a hit of a different type of contaminants, a volatile organic compound that was just above what's considered a drinking water standard. We've sampled numerous times. It bounces around right at that level and was below and has been above. So we sampled their well to the south. We have not got permission to access the property in Leicester. No detections. Groundwater flow is in this direction. We have the well that's in this area, and that has no detections of that. So it's a very isolated area. It's not much you could do about it. And again, it's in the parts per billion. The number that you had for drinking water standard is 5, and we have ranges between 1.7 and 12 in that well. So it's been there 40 years. I don't think it's, going anywhere that way. If it's probably degraded. Now VOCs do degrade over time. So hopefully it's degrading even more so than what it maybe has in the past. But obviously we got a snapshot from 2021 versus when they stopped doing this in the 1980s. So, but at least we're seeing that it's not traveling far. And it's good that they're bedrock wells for these guys. They're not, and we have a bedrock well right next to this. So this is in shallow groundwater, meaning that it's in where the groundwater table starts, which is above the ledge or the bedrock. And we have a well right next to it in the ledge, and it's ND, non-detect. So that's why we really think it's just a little pocket that you really can't do much about, and it will hopefully go away over time. So we have a good handle on the contamination and the extent. And we're going through the MCP process relative to getting to a point to clean up. Now, the only options, if we weren't even bringing a cemetery into place here, is cap it. There's like 60,000 cubic yards of soil with contaminants and mixed debris. Glass, some metal, a few other items in there that those are predominantly what you see, a little bit of ash, but that's mostly what you see for the type of debris. It was construction. It's not a landfill that had like solid waste that you would typically have from a house, not refuse, that kind of material. This is from construction related.
But it
Not
appears that
much.
we burned most of it.
Yeah, that was a surprising thing because it wasn't, I don't know when it was in operation, that we didn't see as much ash as I thought. Like we didn't run into as much evidence of burning. So if they did, they just really brought it in and then just seemed to stack it up. Maybe there were times they did have some burn activities going on, but for the 15 test pits we did, I was a little surprised not seeing a whole lot more ash material. So, but we're not taking that out of play that they could have some burning at different times just to lessen the load of what they brought in. But the glass and the metal, I mean, that doesn't burn. So the remedial options, if we weren't bringing a cemetery into play here, would be to cap it. There's really not much, like to haul that much material off is tens, if not more, millions of dollars to ship it to another landfill, if you will. And 60,000 cubic yards is very expensive to get rid of. And there's a lot of debris, so it probably wouldn't stay in state. It would probably have to go out of state with the contamination that's in it. So ultimately under the MCP, and it's to cap it. And that's where we're heading. And I forget why this one has it. So the same stuff that shows some of the access ways or something that outcrop. So our design is to bring in the capping material as well as bring in additional material to create the landfill space
Cemetery.
in the cemetery. I'm sorry, which is in this area with the grades that you see in a roadway coming off of Cemetery Road, wrapping around into this cul-de-sac. So this is the cemetery area use with the slopes. So everywhere where we had the debris would be capped. And in some cases, as in the center area, we're talking 20 plus feet and change in grade to raise it. So we're bringing in some mildly low-level contaminated soils that aren't considered MCP soils. The terminology is used is reportable concentrations at S1. It's the most stringent of the type of contamination that doesn't warrant cleanup, to raise the grades, and then above that bring in clean material on top, because we don't really, in the cemetery use area, where the plots are, we're not about 8 feet of clean material on top of that. And you can see all the stormwater. We have stormwater, that this part I can't really describe too well, but our design team had done all the stormwater piece. That's a big factor in this, and complicated by the steepness of the slopes and everything else. So that's passed through. It's gone through third-party review, and I think that's really it as far as that. We have cross-section and everything else that probably wouldn't be germane to this. Well, Saeed also has, unless you have any questions on the MCP side, is a little bit more discussion on the cemetery itself.
Just speaking briefly to the engineering side, in the design, in order to achieve a 10-foot of material above any waste, we had to lift up the easterly side of the site a little bit higher than normal in order to give that larger plateau. Otherwise, the investment that the doctors made in the property would have been for very little of a cemetery. So we lifted up the east side to give that minimum 10-foot of clearance, and then everything to the west of that center dash line that goes north-south, everything to the west of that is above virgin ground. So we're not worried about the 10-foot separation. Just the worst thing that we'd ever have is to have a burial where the, you know, the excavator goes down and it gets into some contaminated materials or some, the waste products. It's just, we have to avoid that at all costs.
Yeah, we're a good distance away. So this is that zone pretty much here where the cemetery is, where it overlaps where the debris is. Otherwise, we're outside of it. And all these areas would have at least, it's more than 3 feet, but down here, you're probably talking about 3 feet of cap on the debris that's there. But as you move up, the thickness gets thicker and thicker.
So this received the high scrutiny from the Conservation Commission, from the Planning Board, and also from the DPW during their review of the soils removal permit. So you've had multiple engineers in town, multiple scientists of your own staff that have looked at this and worked with us, and we revised the plans as you've gone along and addressed all of their concerns to date.
So, going back to the cemetery part, so this whole area, and correct me if I'm wrong, Todd, so this is almost 96 square feet,
6,000.
96,000, sorry.
2.2 acres, yeah.
2.2 acres, say it somewhere here. So, we plan to assign like 2,000 grave sites, which actually I mentioned here. And the math is that an average grave area is 24 square feet. And if we make 2,000 sites, it becomes 48,000 square feet. And that's 50% of the available space for burial. Other 50% will be used for pathways, roadways, other structures needed for the cemetery. I also brought, if you go on page 2, I'm sorry, I could not send it to you earlier. Our plan is to perform burial in these cemetery liners, which are pretty, actually concrete liners, which is a very pretty standard way of burial in New England. The dimensions of the liners are mentioned here. If you see the headline here, the heading, it says no concrete floor. I spoke to the supplier, and they can build something like that, but they usually don't. But from religious standpoint, it's not a restriction. I confirmed with our religious, like priests and all those, that if there is a base of concrete, if you put a little bit of soil on that, a person, like a body, can go on that directly also. Our hope is to have so maximum use of the space, whatever we have available, and there we will be using these double concrete liners, which is like stacked grave. If we can put 2 bodies in 1 grave, to maximize the space. This is also very standard, and the supplier will provide those to us. We have to figure out if they can be pre-installed or they can be brought in later on when we are using the grave sites. Because the cost is involved if you pre-install those, a lot of money upfront, which we will not be able to afford it. A typical Muslim grave, since there's a lot of usually questions come up, what a denominational cemetery is, how you do burial. This is how it looks like. It says from a real Muslim burial. I took these photos. These are a little darker, but you can see that concrete liner here, and that's basically the lid of that. And I could not find anything on Massachusetts website, but most of the state recommend 18-inch below grade. I put 1 foot, so we'll have to go a little bit lower. We'll have to confirm if it's really a 1 foot or 18-inch. And the last page I have here is what a Muslim cemetery will look like. This is one in California. So that's our vision. So there'll be like level to the ground, headstones will be there. There may be some space to put like a flower bouquet or something, but headstone would be level to the ground.
I just bought my grave today. I'm trying to sell you the stones, the big stones, the small stones. You guys are real small stones.
Yeah, so we can take a big one too.
For you.
So that's where we stand with that, and I put in narrative, how it will be operated. It's going to be a non-profit organization. My intent is not commercial here. My intent is purely philanthropic, to provide, basically the cost of funeral is significantly gone up in past several years, and cremation is strictly prohibited in our faith. In fact, if a community member gets cremated, if you really believe in afterlife, everybody pays price for that. So that's sort of, so we call it, it's the collective obligation of the community to give a respectable Muslim burial to any Muslim who wants that. So that's the main intention behind it.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the insight of that. It's
Yeah.
certainly very interesting and certainly something that I've never been involved in, certainly, and nor has the Board of Health here. So, yes,
I think we recognize that the town, very few towns have actually gone through new cemeteries, because most of them were sited and built years and years ago. So, we understand that this is a new process for the town, and that the Board of Health obviously has jurisdictions.
no, as I understand it, the decedent, it lays on the soil in this, and is there must be plans for runoff there at all, or
Runoff.
that's,
The
Water runoff?
Similar to any other cemetery.
Okay.
The surface soil runoff is taken care of, and that's all addressed.
Oh.
During an actual burial, the hole would be dug, the body would be placed at the bottom of the hole on the soil, and then a vault would be placed on top of the body with the four sides,
And
no bottom. So the vault goes over the body itself, and then
Right.
the top is placed on that. Then the hole is filled back up again. So that when it rains, obviously the rain hits the surface, and that rain runs off.
Doesn't
No
work.
rain goes into the hole.
I see.
Yeah, it
water's not
doesn't,
allowed
because
to
there's the top concrete, yeah.
I
So
see,
it's-
okay.
Yeah, anything that infiltrates into the ground is not actually going there. I mean, most of it's the surface water runoff, but then whatever goes through, through the soil or the grass and around it,
Okay.
it would be going on the outside.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you for that. That clarifies it.
Through the chair, if I could ask Dr. Saeed, for the, I thought you were going to do one body per grave, but you're considering now two, so they'd be double stacked? And is that correct?
Well, our intention was never to put one body in the grave. Our intention was to utilize the space maximally, because it's such a tedious process to get it approved.
Sure.
Cemetery space is so hard to find
Mhm.
as population in general is growing. So, and I was not sure if religiously it is allowed, and it's actually, based on the same reasons, it's actually recommended to maximize the cemetery space. So yeah, short answer is yes. We will try to maximize double liners as much as possible, utilize maximum.
And s-
Oh, sorry.
if I could just ask, so for the body, the first body going in the ground and to the earth, how do you handle the second one? You have the
Goes on a slab.
liner? So it will go on a slab, but as long as you put some soil,
On,
that
yes.
it's okay. So structurally, you'll have it stacked, but I guess meet the obligations of your faith.
Yes.
Okay.
And these are pre-built, so this company supplies all over New England these liners, so there's nothing customized here. So we'll just utilize those. And they're structurally sound. You can, like, heavy equipment can go over those,
Each 20 loaded.
Okay.
so they won't cave in or something like that.
And for the graves, because I think originally you had said you wanted 2,000 grave sites, so would it be actually close to 4,000 burials that you could do? Is that right?
Yeah, less than that, because if you look at the design there, I don't think everywhere you cannot put these. You need at least 8 to 9 feet of space for this to accommodate. Maybe we can, yeah, so we should go for 4,000, yes.
I just wanted, just so we understand the number, because, and I'm sure I understand if you're going through this permitting process, you want to utilize as much as the land as possible with the challenges that you're working around. But just for the board's purpose.
4,000.
And 4,000, okay. And if I could ask, Mr. Curtin, you identified the properties on both sides of the site. And so one of those properties is in Auburn, 20 Cemetery Road.
Yep.
And then the other one, I believe, is in Leicester, 12-14.
Yeah.
12-14 Cemetery Road. I know there was some initial testing because there's private wells and private septics on that in that area of town. What have the most recent tests? It sounds like Leicester, you were not able to get in touch with.
They wouldn't answer, yeah.
or
We sent the
permission.
letter and, yeah, and we
Right.
knocked on the door a couple
We
times.
knocked
and-
on-
Yeah,
Okay.
so they just been avoiding the question or ask.
So
yeah.
they don't, obviously for Leicester, we can't speak for Leicester, but is the town of Leicester involved for this project?
We've sent, yeah, we have actually because of, I mean, there's obviously for the abutters or the notices that have gone out for the permitting piece, they've been notified that way, but
Planning
we,
board and conservation.
yeah, but we have not submitted anything, although everything's public record relative to anything MCP wise that we submit is something that anyone could look up and download the report, but we haven't had to send anything to their Board of Health because we haven't sampled their well in the town, you know what I mean? So as far as a private well, so I have not had direct contact. I don't know if you have, Dave, or I haven't spoken to anyone in Leicester's Board of Health about this.
Okay.
Other than official notifications as required.
Yeah.
They responded.
Okay. And then,
Certified mail.
thank you. And for 20 Cemetery Road, the residence that is on the opposite side, which is in Auburn.
Yep.
And for that resident, can you just explain what well testing has been offered and?
We did sample it, yeah, and we sampled it for that contaminant of concern. So the other contaminants that are in the soils I described, they're not in groundwater at levels that even warrant the need to be looking elsewhere, put it that way, because we compared there's actually five groundwater monitoring wells on our site. The metals, the PCBs, they just don't go into water too well or too easily. You don't see them usually. And we haven't. So in our groundwater monitoring wells, the only concern that we have is that VOC issue. So we sampled that person's well for the VOCs and was not detect. So there's that one compound that we have in our monitoring well in the center of our site. It was not in his well and any of VOCs. There's no VOCs at all, which is a whole host of contaminants that you run for VOC analysis. He didn't have a well log, and we looked it up. This well is 350 feet deep, their bedrock well. So I don't know where casing, I forget, we might even have information on where the casing was driven into the bedrock, and then they, leave it open. So it's very deep, for whatever fractures are in the groundwater and the ledge. So I would expect that this person's is the same. He was very helpful, but he couldn't find anything that he had in his records when his house was built, because that is a newer house.
Yes.
But he didn't have any records relative to that he could find for us to say this well depth. So
And when was the testing done, the most recent testing?
less than a year ago, or almost at this time last year, actually. Yeah.
And any concern from him for this project?
Yeah, nothing else that I've heard from, and he's trying to remember if he came to, or he was maybe public on one of the meetings. I don't know for sure, but he had expressed no other concerns. No.
So he came on zoning board of appeal meeting and expressed his concern. His concern was mostly privacy.
Oh yes,
His
yeah.
property.
Yeah.
And then actually Dennis, one of our team members from Ty and Bond, reached out to him, and he is looking for some sort of trees and shrubbery, whatever the
Visual.
For the visual.
because their pool is in the backyards.
He's going to be looking up at a slope, really. You won't see, because this is, as you can see, there's a pretty good rise between his, so he probably wouldn't even see the cemetery area from his house, but
If you notice I'm not sure you see, to address the stormwater concerns, the stormwater flow as it comes off the site will travel down through, it'll be captured in a swale here, brought into a basin. This is his home here, directed all the way to this corner, and then brought down this section here. So there'll be no stormwater flow allowed over his property.
I think as part of the, like the hearing, when we get to that point.
Sure.
You know, we want to just make sure all the abutters are notified.
Excellent. Any questions?
I probably just misheard, so the concrete layer with the dirt on it is only in the separation of the first and second body, but not on that first bottom of the,
Right.
okay.
So our hope is not to, but if we have to, it's not, we can do that.
The hope is to not have a concrete bottom on the
Bottom, like the first floor
Yeah.
bottom should be without concrete,
the first condo.
and the second floor or second
Yes.
story.
Yeah, the
will
pet
have-
house.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah, we all have to go there one way or other, so.
Yes, we do.
So, that will have to have concrete with some layer of like a couple of inches of soil in there.
Yes, yeah.
The woman that sold me the two cemetery plots today, it coincidentally said, "Tell your children it's a forever condo."
you had something else you heard about that cemetery as far as they bury the same way.
Oh, the
Do you have any concerns or questions?
I did want to ask Dr. Said, so it describes that the, I know at some point, because this has been a long process, obviously, that you have been planning with your professionals. At some point, you had talked about a structure, like a building structure there, and I think that has since been changed. And it does talk about the bodies being prepped off-site at funeral homes. Do you have funeral homes in the area that you
Yes.
would be using specifically for your faith?
So what happens, again, this is, so what happens, we have contracts with funeral homes, funeral home directors, and what you basically do, you prepare body yourself, the community members, so they'll let you use their equipment, their space, you wash the body, whatever the ritualistic way is, and then shroud it and keep it at a funeral home, and at the time of burial, you just bring the body either to your mosque first and then to the cemetery, or just to the cemetery directly and perform the burial.
typically within 24 hours if it all was.
Yes, so just like Jewish tradition, so has to be done.
And if I'm not mistaken, in the Jewish tradition, the placing the body on the earth is very similar. It's not done in a U.S. Catholic form with a casket. That's the way.
And I guess I would offer, because this is a first cemetery, and you do have a landfill as part of it, and you have a process for that, it is something that, as I have mentioned in the past, it's something kind of a unique area of expertise. So I would recommend to the board that we have a professional review done, so that we can make sure that everything is in order, and if there's any concerns that come up as part of the site or it being in town. Cemetery Road is a rural gravel road, and I do see in your narrative that you'll have burials 7 days a week.
We hope if we can afford it, so that's
Yeah.
that's the big, interment and everything on a weekend is not easy, but
Okay.
that's the ideal circumstance, if you can do it.
And just kind of looking at the whole picture about what the site is going to be prepped with, the soils that are going to be brought in, and I guess I think you had mentioned, you have 5 monitoring wells on the site?
We have 4 monitoring well locations. One's considered like a cluster well, so it's a shallow and a deeper well.
Oh, okay.
So that's,
6.
yeah, so we have, it's 5 wells altogether, yeah.
As part of the, I guess, the MCP process, do those monitoring wells stay in place and that's in perpetuity that testing would be done?
We'll have to, and there was one of the conditions I forget which board, relative to monitoring after. The wells will be destroyed at some point. We're going to be raising the grade so much that they're not going to be useful, the ones that we have. We may try to salvage the one that we had for the deep one, just raise it as we go along if we could. But if not, we could re-drill. But one of the things is, this is, the way things are flowing, is to have monitoring wells set up along there. We need the center well that has that VOC issue. We do over time need it to go away or go to levels that are lower, to be able to get this to what's called a permanent solution. So there is a little bit of monitoring that would have to go on until we could get there. But also we could, I think one of the conditions was that groundwater monitoring after or during construction or after is done to make sure that things haven't changed relative to the groundwater conditions as you work towards the wetland, which starts over here is a little bit closer, but there's a gap here between the wetland where the wetland starts, across the street. We didn't flag it. We didn't go on to another person's property, but there is a connection as it goes to the south from that area. So yes, there will be some more monitoring needs down the road.
Right, I think maybe just identifying that, how long that would happen, because obviously you're proposing the solution to the unpermitted, basically unpermitted landfill, and this would be a permanent solution for the site and beneficial use for Dr. Saeed and his family. So just how that works with, like, over time for making sure that the private wells in the area are monitored. So I know you did initial testing with at least the abutter for 20 Cemetery Road, and that's, I think, the one that is the
Biggest
closest.
concerns, yeah. For the most part, if we had something between us and them and it showed that it was an ND, I would feel comfortable that it's not impacting his well or their well to the southeast. So instead of trying to get access all the time and to have to work with them to get private well sampling, so we would have something in. And I was curious because I forgot to ask the person I went to sample as well where his bedrock well is located in relationship to his house. If it's up the hill, I'm not exactly sure, but anyway, if we have that gap in between and we show, like we have, because we do have a well on one of the other sheets, it's close to his property right now, and we have non-detect there too.
So tonight was just a presentation, so really just recommendations would be, what are the next steps?
Yeah, I think the next step would be to send this out for a professional review. And I reached out to Mr. Murphy this afternoon for some discussion regarding that. So I think that might be something that we can, take offline and see if we're able to get the review going. Because I think, at least my understanding is, they want to move on the project as quickly as possible, having gone through 3 other boards already. And this project does also require town meeting approval. So that was identified as a comment in the ZBA meeting, and we have reached out to town council, and he has confirmed that after the Board of Health process, then town meeting process.
So I have a couple of points that I wanted to make. One is that it's way out of my limit now, the budget. I'm an individual person who's basically trying to fund this project myself. I heard about the third-party reviewer for this. I think it's Bill and Steep for us. I would just request that if our team can meet with them first, and just brief them about the project, that may save us some hours in terms of their final cost, final bill.
Yeah, we represent literally hundreds of municipalities as peer reviewers across both Massachusetts and other New England states as a firm. And one way that we found that can save our staff a lot of good time, and we want to make sure your reviewers do the work they need to do, don't get me wrong, and provide the service you need to have them to be comfortable with. That said, one way that we've learned that to bring those costs down is to meet with the team up front and have the engineer that's done the work do a presentation one-on-one around table with you present, walking through the development of the plans, the details of the plans, the details of the permits, the details of what occurred at each meeting, who asked what, how the plans changed, what information was presented, the reports are presented. And it's not that you're giving them exhaustive, but you're giving them basically a roadmap to every single question that they would have so they can quickly access that information. Then we become available to them whenever they want to answer their questions. They still do a full independent review, don't get me wrong, which is, it has the effectively of bringing that $7,000 to $10,000 cost, possibly significantly lower than that.
So your company does the independent reviews
The other way, yeah.
for other folks as well?
Yeah, we have a 600-person firm around New England. Yeah.
I mean, is that something we could entertain? That, I mean, they're already like a kind of bringing it down to help out Dr. Saeed to try to work with them on that. I mean, if they're already a certified firm.
We wouldn't do the review. Well,
Right,
same-
exactly, that's what I mean, but,
We'd help your reviewer, that's all we're.
Yeah.
yeah.
I think it really, the board can certainly consider that. But this area of expertise is something specific, so the laws regarding the DEP mass contingency plan regulations is something that my understanding has to be done by a licensed site professional. Mr. Curtin is that. And my understanding from speaking with, so the town actually has a landfill consultant, because we actually do have a landfill that's closed in the town. So we have, as part of our responsibilities, I'm sure Ty and Bond probably is hired by municipalities for the same purpose. We actually have a consultant, Sanborn Head, that handles the requirements for our town landfill. So I had reached out to them, and they do have a licensed site professional that is able to look at this and do a review. But certainly the input and recommendation from the board, it really, I think, I just want you to be aware, this is not a review that that our health department has done before.
Right.
And because you've got the landfill and the cemetery, there's, obviously, two things that need to be looked at. And we want to make sure, obviously, protection of the groundwater wells. There are residents in that area of town, and then what the long-term monitoring is going to be. If what they're describing is there's going to be monitoring wells, what's the expectation of how long that happens? I'm sure that's identified under MCP, but I am not aware of that.
Which is a little different than landfill monitoring. Landfill monitoring is ongoing for, as you know, just
Right.
keeps going on and on. So MCP, you can reach a permanent solution without having to continually monitor long, for whatever, for years and years and years on end. So it's a good point to bring out. And there are requirements relative to being that close to drinking water wells and things like that. In fact, when we first had that hit, we had a little bit of concern that they were impacted, and sort of upped the ante, if you will, relative to the to a notification that the Mass DEP, we had to notify them within 72 hours of that finding, and then we did. And then we basically put that to rest we closed that issue out relative to our findings. And I made the point that not finding it here in the depth of that well up to the north. So, so it's back to square one, if you will. And, hopefully, nothing will change after we construct and there's a monitoring requirement time period and then it's done.
So all I was trying to say is, so my intent from day one, as you know, is to go with whatever is being asked us to do. And I'm not against any, actually, it's a very good thing that, because we will be essentially living there, right? Our bodies, our deceased will be there. So last thing I want is like after 10 burials, you say, well, there's a problem in the land. So we want to be 100% sure that town is on board, everything is done the right way. Well, I'm trying to say if there's a way of somehow cutting down expenses, and that's one way we came up, like just tell them in front of you, not to bias their opinion, just to get them up to the pace with the project so that they can spend less time on the project. So that's all my request was in this regard. The other thing I think I should bring it's again beyond the scope of this board, is that we were never told that there will be a town vote for this. And if that was the case, we would have gone town vote first, because we spent a lot of resources in this. And we met with DCG twice. I met with them, I met with the selectmen representative, and they all say it will go to the Board of Selectmen, and there will be, and they said they have no objection to the project at that point. Again, I'm bringing it up, whatever happens, we'll go through it, but it's a big change. It's a huge change, and it actually puts everything in jeopardy for us, for me actually, who's been working this project for 4 years now. You're just putting it in public domain, which we have already done. We had attended like every board, we had 3 meetings, and they were all public. And we went through very rigorous approval process already. So, and again, our intent is to do whatever is required by law. But at some point, you have to say, well, when are we gonna? That's all I want to make of that point. So.
And I certainly appreciate your honesty about the project, and I think I have been talking with you for several years, and
Sure.
and
And you've been very helpful.
thank you. I understand what your mission is, and why you want this project, and a proposed cemetery in this area, I think is appropriate. Obviously, finding the the unpermitted dump, nobody knew that. So we discovered it when we went out to do the park. So
Sure.
it's not something that the town was aware of. But I do recognize that through your professionals, you're coming up with a solution to make the site useful. And I think that is helpful for that site. And as far as the town meeting process, that is not something that I was aware of. It was brought up at the October meeting.
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah,
So-
so I
Which
was
October meeting of what board?
ZBA. So there was a ZBA meeting in October, and it was brought up by a board member. So Mr. Murphy had reached out to me. I wasn't at that meeting. I was away that week, and he had expressed concern, and so I spoke with the staff from my office that were at that meeting, and they were not aware of that either. And so we reached out to town council, who then researched the fact that it was brought up.
Sure.
And so town council,
Yeah, I saw the
identified,
opinion,
yeah. Yeah, so I sent the opinion to Mr. Murphy. So, again, there's no, I'm not holding any information that
I know
I
you're
have
not. It's
from
just-
you. That's not our goal at all. We want to be helpful to you, and I certainly understand the scope of it. But I do understand why you're mentioning it.
Yeah,
But
just,
not my intention to hold anything back. It's not something that I was aware of through my research of cemeteries.
I guess, I mean, because that, I share your frustration. I mean, here you are working on this for 4 years, and then
Yeah.
at 11th hour, like, oh, by the way,
Mhm.
has ZBA known about this for 4 years, or how did that come to be?
No, Dr. Saeed and his team started going through the process earlier this year. He went through the planning board, I think it was first, planning and ZBA kind of at the same time, and conservation throughout the process. So as each board was happening, obviously comments and discussion are coming about from their presentation and through the public input.
We think it's fair to say that even several years ago, the meetings we had with the town managers and the selectmen, no one knew. No one knew. And it wasn't until you went to town council this fall, town council researched the court records, and there was some case back in 1925 where a municipality had an issue, and the rendering out of the court was that the selectmen don't count effectively. It needs to go to town meeting. But
I mean, I
the
can-
actual writing of the statute, if you read the writing of the statute, it looks like it's just the Board of Health and the selectmen. That's the appearance of the
And
statute.
honestly,
You and I
that's,
went through it.
that, I mean, you've been here a while, and we've been in meetings, you know, in the past couple of years. It's not anything that I've ever said to you. I did always say it had to go through the Board of Health process, but
Sure.
up until that, you reached out to me, I'm like, okay. I mean,
This is new.
the town planner and I even discussed it. I said, I'm not aware of this. Are you? And we had a discussion about it. So when we reached out, it does appear that it is I mean, literally, like almost 100-year-old case.
I'm 40 years as a professional and been through, I don't want to count the number of town meetings. We all know what town meetings are like, and, you know, it also takes us one person, and it can sway a crowd, and things go south quickly, and, well, they go properly and perfectly fine. So it gets a little hairy and nervous, you know, when someone's invested, you know, literally your entire savings.
Right.
Literally his entire savings.
So again, my point is that we want to follow every single rule, which is we want to do it absolutely the right way. But we really hope it gets approved because we've been really working hard on this project.
Absolutely.
And there's no financial incentive for me in this. It's all philanthropic at my end.
I understand that, and, you know, you shared that with me early on.
Sure.
I completely understand your
Sure.
position.
Thank you.
So the offer stands with your third-party consultant that we would be willing to do a debrief at the very beginning.
And I think if you weren't already this professional engineering firm and company and have done this on the reverse, I think I would take a different stance. But I mean, I would say that whatever the path of least resistance is to get that done.
You have a wonderful third-party review. I know the senior players there. They're a very professional firm, and you'll get a great review out of them.
Yeah, well, I mean, however, I think we can accomplish that with the least amount of impact on your philanthropic effort
We are greatly appreciative.
is how I would
Absolutely.
stand. I mean, just looking at the effort that you've put in on this already into,
Right.
you know, here you are, it's surely coming to fruition, and there's now all these surprises popping up. I want to limit that as best we can for an effort. You know,
Agreed.
Thank you.
And I think it also, you know, I mean, if the recommendation of the board is to move forward, I certainly can relay the information. In my initial, just like literally just my initial conversation with the landfill, with our landfill consultant for the town, they already had, you know, expressed, you know, Ty and Bond is a very capable and respectable company. So I think that, you know, you put the professionals together and they can take a look and just make sure that the due diligence of the Board of Health is met for this this proposed project.
No, and I think that, again, that the most thorough path of least resistance that we can get this to be done, and I think I would just charge all the parties to get that done however they can, you know, and it's, you know, has to meet, you know, whatever is recommended and whatever's in the law and stuff like that, but if you know these folks, you guys are a professional firm, they're a professional firm, you know, some side work and to get it done and get a review that's sufficient to the director and us, I think that we can meet your needs as well, because those matter as well, so.
Excellent.
Okay.
So I guess, I guess the next steps is, I'll,
Yeah.
you know, if the board, is inclined, you can direct me to, reach out and I will get the process started and then, we can connect, the parties. Does that sound
Yeah.
sound like a plan?
Yeah, reach out, connect the parties, set up a meeting. I don't think necessarily we have to be there, but if
Yeah.
you folks are there, that way
Yeah.
your scheduling's a lot easier.
Sure.
And then if we even need to approve it, then we just put it on something to approve or review or whatever we need to do. Because, you know, you have to have it on the town warrant before town meeting and all that other stuff too. So you have that timeline we gotta.
Right, and we had, talked initially.
Speaking of which, when is the warrant deadline for getting on the town meeting?
So, we typically have our Springtown meeting is May, the beginning of May. I want to say like the first or the second Tuesday in May. But I'll check with the town clerk to see if we get the date. I don't know if it's been decided yet, but typically it's May, beginning of May. And then they work backwards. So I think we might be.
February.
Yeah, I'm thinking like
March.
March, but yeah, so February, March. So what I do want to make sure though is if we're able to get the review done by the professionals, essentially we would have to bring that back to the board because we're going to have a public meeting for the public input.
Sure.
Obviously, this is a presentation to the board, but for the public to, you know, provide their comments regarding this proposed project.
Sure.
And then the board can take that into consideration and, you know,
It says Board of Health.
I'm sorry, this is the Board of Health.
No,
Yeah.
so the presentation, subsequent presentation that's for public will be done for the town meeting, is that?
So just for the Board of Health,
Okay,
so you're going through our review process.
sure.
And then the board will decide whether or not they want to approve or deny or approve with conditions this project. And then once you have a decision from this board, essentially, I would imagine Mr. Murphy would want to take that and all the decisions from the other boards
To the
and
town
put those together to present at town meeting.
Town meeting.
But
Yep.
what she's saying is that in the Board of Health process, the public meeting is necessary, right? So it has to be advertised
Okay,
for that public.
so this is
comment.
not a public meeting on the girls?
It is, but it's not necessarily like, this is, you know, it's, you had the introduction, this is the presentation, and so we would have like literally a public hearing. So if
Okay.
anybody who's watching, we do have, you know, people that tune in, and if they are like, oh, okay, I wonder, I heard you talk about the project, but I have, you know, these questions. That's you need the public input.
So I suspect you need to contract with the Sanborn Head, sign a PO or something with them and give them scope of work. They're gonna need 4 weeks or so, plus or minus, to review it. Then they're gonna present that finding to you and to us. You'll have to then have that public hearing and then you vote on it. So we got a little bit of time to get through here.
Right, I mean, I think we can certainly speak about, again, if we're able to get a quote from our landfill consultant and then present that to the applicant, and if they're amenable to it, we can, you know, get a peer review. We get a peer review to basically a deposit.
Yeah.
We do this a lot in planning board, and sometimes zoning. We don't do this a lot for health because we typically do the reviews in-house. For this project, it's not something that we can do. I don't know how to review an MCP project, but a licensed site professional is able to do that.
So I think to move forward with this without delay,
Yeah.
in the interest of thoroughness and time,
Mhm.
to move this along.
We'd be glad to meet with you
Right.
and the consultant before they give you the
Right.
quote, if that helps. We'll make ourselves available to you,
Sure, I mean, I'll,
even if you want to do Zoom or whatever.
we can
Whatever.
connect, yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
Sounds like we know marching orders.
Yes, I think we all have matching orders there.
Great. All right, anything further? So yeah,
I just sincerely hope we are successful in that.
You too.
I
You too.
so I can certainly empathize with your amount of work and time and money and savings and stuff too. So if we can, whatever we can do, we're here for you.
you so much.
Let's get this
Yeah.
done the right way, but,
And Down have been very supportive at all levels, I have to say that.
great, excellent. Well, thank you all very much for your time. Appreciate
Thank
it.
Gentlemen, have a good night.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda was the body work. We're having this quick discussion on some body work regulations. Quickly, do we have a bunch of stuff to kind of go through here? I don't think we need to go through it all tonight. I think it's something that we can certainly look at and come back with some, I guess that there was some concern over some body work regulations, massage parlors, pop-ups with
Yeah.
the, potential of their, getting some crime concerns to the police department and et cetera. So I think that it's something that we've been asked to kind of take a stance on.
Gotcha.
So I think that that's something that we can certainly start working on. We have, like I said, a lot to look at.
Yeah.
And I think that we can certainly do that and get it ready for next
Yeah.
meeting. Did you have anything quick on that, or?
I just wanted to, I wanted to thank Tim. Tim was able to find, about half a dozen or so here. However, you do have, quite a few in here to look at. I'm trying to get us some more local regs. So we do have the town of Oxford. It's my understanding after speaking with the chair of the Oxford Board of Health is that they've had their regulation in place for some time, and they did work with their police department as well. So they've kind of have a well-oiled machine already. So we're fortunate to have that relationship, with them. But I'm also looking at other Central Mass boards of health right now that are actually going through this process. So I don't think we're the only ones, but unfortunately, there's been some crime and concern of activity at some of these establishments. So the police have asked for our help, and it is something that the Board of Health has the authority to make regulations. So that's why you have them in your packet. So really, it's an introduction. We're hoping to be able to kind of come up with something, a draft form, and we'll certainly have, your input and input from the police department as to how we can get this done. I know that they want to get this done yesterday. So we do expect to bring you something hopefully in the next, meeting or two.
Okay.
Great.
That's great. Thank you.
And last, one of the last things, the solid waste recycling, holiday tree drop off and string light recycling.
Yeah, so I think I have in there, can't believe it's so close now.
Already recycled lights.
Yeah, so we have the string lights, and actually, believe it or not, those buckets are, so we have them all in the town hall right now. We'll be delivering them to senior center in the library. But when people are getting rid of their lights, please don't throw them in the trash. We call it a tangler. So it gets, and people will throw them in the recycle bucket. They're definitely not in the recycle bucket. If you can bring them in, put them in one of our buckets here at the town hall, senior center, or public library, that would be best. But if you're not able to do that, then they go in the trash.
Okay.
In holiday tree recycling, I did confirm those dates with the DPW. So December 26th, January 12th, you can bring the Christmas tree to the leaf pile, and they have their normal stickers. I think it's a $5 fee for residents that don't have a brush pile sticker, and there's no additional fee for people that already have the yard waste sticker.
All right. Anything on the Maven to review?
Yes, thank you so much.
And then office updates was just the free COVID tests are available in all the town meeting
Yes.
buildings and, okay.
Yes.
Excellent. Did you have anything else? No? Okay. All right.
No?
No?
Okay.
Good? All right. I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make motion to adjourn tonight's December 16th meeting, 2024.
And I second that. All those in favor, Karen Griffin?
Aye.
Eric Otterson, aye. Meeting is adjourned.